Okay, I want to share a few thoughts on Isaiah 54 and 55. And I thought it was interesting because in these two chapters, Isaiah talks about, or he prophesies essentially, of the Lord saying that he's going to make more are the children of the desolate than the children of the married wife. And I was thinking about this. If a woman has never been pregnant and yet ends up with more kids than the married wife, how can that be? Well, and the one way you can do it is adoption. So he then talks about how in verse 3, thy seed shall inherit the Gentiles and make the desolate cities inhabited. So in essence, this barren woman that's never been pregnant will adopt the Gentiles, and the Gentiles will become part of her family. And it's an amazing prophecy because of how the proliferation of the church among the Gentiles. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting note there too. And the other thing here is a lot of Isaiah talks about this pattern, and I've talked a lot about this pattern of pride and how he's not going to forget us. He's going to take us in our desert-like state where we have a clean slate and bless us. He's not going to, he's only going to be away from us for a little time when we're wicked. And then he's going to come back with enormous mercy. And so that's what he says here. With grace, for a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with great mercies will I gather thee. And then in verse 10, for mountains will depart and my kindness will not depart. So I was thinking about how long is this promise? Well, it outlasts the age of mountains. For one example is what he says. And I thought about the Appalachians. This is the Appalachian Mountains. If you haven't been out, they're really beautiful. My family and I went out to Tennessee and Gatlinburg, and we got to hike around. It's really, really beautiful area. And those are about 500 million years old. So somebody that can stick behind their word for 500 million years, that's not too bad. And then the other parts in chapter 55 talks a lot about just partaking of this mercy and coming by wine and milk, without money and without price. If you're thirsting for the waters of life, if you're hungry, you can come and get it. And that's the spiritual life. And the physical, tangible life is obviously different because you need money in the tangible life. But for the spiritual life, it's all free without price. And it then talks about in this verse, you don't buy things that don't satisfy. And so hearken diligently, eat that which is good, let your soul delight in fatness. Hearken meaning listen. When we listen carefully and pay attention, we're able to quench our thirst for this spiritual life. And we can eat that which is good, consume uplifting things, not allow our life to get bogged down in negativity and lies, which is a major temptation. And let our soul delight in fatness. And I thought about this a lot. It's really about gratitude. When we're grateful, we remember the blessings that the Lord has given us, and we feel spiritually fed and spiritually fat, which is a huge blessing. And if you're not aware, I've read a few articles about the importance of gratitude towards mental health, and came across this article in Psychology Today. I love learning about psychology, and one of the interesting points they make is gratitude boosts happiness, fosters physical and psychological health, even among those already struggling with mental health problems. Studies show that practicing gratitude curbs the use of words expressing negative emotions and shifts inner attention away from negative emotions and resentment, and reduces stress, helps us avoid some of the problems of depression. So let our soul delight in fatness. We can be grateful for the things that we've been experience. And I did this once. I once read the hymn, Count Your Blessings, name them one by one. I thought, what if I actually did that? And so I took a time and wrote down in my journal as many things as I could list. And I remember getting to well over 100, and I just felt overwhelmed. I remember right around 100, I just started feeling overwhelmed at how fortunate I truly am, and not necessarily in comparison to others, but in the sense of I have had so many blessings in my life that if I can just remember them and just remind myself of them, it puts my whole life in a different perspective. It makes everything clearer, and it provides me with a sense of peace and happiness, really, that can't come otherwise. And then he says this is going to be an everlasting covenant. And then he kind of goes on to say, by the way, I do this because I'm not like you. My ways are higher than yours, and my thoughts are higher than yours. And I was thinking, what would life be like if God thought like we did, or I did? And boy, that would be, I can't imagine a more hellish existence. And it's not that I feel like we have terrible thoughts all the time. It's just that there's a sense of stability in knowing that God has set in place these patterns that govern reality. This isn't magic. This isn't hocus pocus. This is how life manifests itself in reality. And these are just the patterns of reality that he set into place. And he describes them in these scriptures, but they're veiled in these stories that, unless you're doing, like you mentioned earlier, you're really paying attention and you're really considering them, and you're being grateful and so forth, you're going to miss it. And I know I do. I miss these things all the time. So it's like, I'm just glad that he doesn't think like I do, because half the time I'm not thinking right. And maybe a little better than half the time, but there's many times I'm not thinking right. And I'm sure that is the way with a lot of us. So I had these experiences where, I've tried to do things separate from what God had thought, and it just was just a terrible idea. So at the end of these verses, he uses this analogy: as the rain comes down, so shall my word be. And that's a beautiful analogy, because rain comes from above. It flows down to us on earth, and it waters us and life and plants so that we can grow. And that is exactly how the word of God works. It comes down from above, and it provides sustenance and life-giving essence that enables us to grow.